I'm 78 years old, and I only figured out what love actually costs when there wasn't much left to give. I'm not saying that for sympathy. I'm saying it because, at this age, you stop polishing things. You tell them straight, or you don't tell them at all. I don't have the energy to pretend anymore, and I don't see the point. Most days now are quiet. Not peaceful quiet, just empty. The kind of quiet where the refrigerator hum is the loudest thing in the room. The kind where you notice how often the phone doesn't ring. That's when the thinking comes. Not the big dramatic thoughts. Just small memories drifting in, uninvited. Things I didn't pay enough attention to when they were happening. Back when I was younger, I didn't think of myself as someone who avoided love. I thought I was responsible, practical, reliable. I showed up to work. I paid bills. I did what was expected. People said I was dependable, and I wore that like a badge. I didn't run away from relationships. I just kept postponing them. I grew up believing that love was something you fit in once everything else was handled. Once the job was stable. Once the house was paid for. Once you were less tired. Once you had more time. There was always something that came first. In my 20s, I worked long hours, not because I loved the work, but because that's what you did. I told myself I was building a future. I thought love would be easier later, when things settled down. I met her when I was 26. Her name was Margaret. She laughed with her whole face. She didn't rush her sentences. She listened like what you were saying mattered, even when it didn't. We weren't some great romance. We were ordinary. Coffee on Sunday mornings, folding laundry together, sitting too close on the couch without mentioning it. She wanted more time. That was her main complaint, if you could call it that. Not more gifts, not more promises, just time. I told her I was tired. I told her work was demanding. I told her things would ease up soon. I believed that, or maybe I needed to. When she asked me once, quietly, if this was what the rest of our life would look like, I laughed it off. I said, "Of course not. This is just a busy stretch." That busy stretch lasted years. I didn't cheat. I didn't lie outright. I just wasn't there the way she needed. When she talked, I half listened. When she was upset, I told myself it would pass. When she went quiet, I assumed she was fine. People talk about big mistakes, affairs, blow-ups, betrayals. Mine didn't look like that. Mine looked like coming home late too often. Mine looked like saying, "Not tonight," again. Mine looked like assuming tomorrow was guaranteed. Eventually, she stopped asking. By the time I noticed, it felt awkward to bring it up, like addressing a crack in the wall you'd been stepping around for years. You worry that touching it will make everything collapse, so I kept stepping around it. She left when I was 34, packed her things calmly, no shouting, no dramatic speech, just said she didn't want to grow old feeling alone next to someone. I remember nodding, like I understood. I remember thinking I would have time to sort myself out and maybe find someone else. I was sad, but I wasn't panicked. That's what surprises me now. I really thought I had plenty of time. The years after that filled themselves easily. Work expanded, responsibilities multiplied, promotions came. People congratulated me, said I was doing well. I dated here and there. Nothing stuck. I told myself I was picky, or busy, or just not the marrying type. The truth is, I'd gotten used to keeping people at arm's length, close enough to not be lonely, far enough to not be inconvenienced. In my 40s, my parents got sick. That took up space. Hospital visits, paperwork, long drives. Love, again, became something postponed, something I'd deal with after the crisis passed. Except there was always another crisis. I don't want to make myself sound tragic. I had good moments, friends, laughter, trips, meals shared, a decent life by most standards. But love, the kind that asks something of you every day, kept getting edged out by things that felt urgent but weren't permanent. The cost didn't announce itself. It crept in quietly. It was being the extra chair at someone else's table. It was being the one people assumed was fine on his own. It was not having anyone who noticed when I seemed tired. I told myself I liked the independence. Then one day, in my late 50s, I ran into Margaret again. Pure accident. Grocery store. Produce aisle. She looked older. So did I. But her eyes were the same. We talked for a few minutes. Safe things. Weather. Retirement plans. She told me about her husband, her children, grandchildren. She seemed content, not glowing, just settled. Before we parted, she said something that still sits with me. She said, "I used to wonder if I was asking too much back then." I didn't know what to say. I told her she wasn't. She smiled sadly and said, "I know that now." That was it. She walked away, and I stood there holding a bag of apples I didn't really want. That was the first time I felt something close to panic about time. Not fear of dying. Fear of having missed the point. Still, even then, I didn't change much. Habits have weight. Loneliness, when it becomes familiar, feels safer than vulnerability. It wasn't until my early 70s that the clarity really came. And it came the way it often does, through loss. A friend of mine, Frank, died suddenly. Heart attack, no warning. We'd worked together for years, retired around the same time. At the funeral, I watched his wife, the way she touched the casket, the way she leaned into their children, the way grief moved through a family that had been built slowly, over decades. I went home to my house, quiet, clean, unlived in. That night, I realized something I hadn't allowed myself to think before. No one would miss me like that. They would remember me, sure, say kind things, but there was no one whose life was woven tightly into mine. That wasn't an accident. It was the result of thousands of small decisions to stay comfortable, to delay, to assume. That's when it hit me. Love isn't something you add on when life allows it. It's something you build by choosing it when it's inconvenient. I learned that too late. Now, at 78, there are things I can't fix. That's just the truth of it. I can't go back and sit on that couch longer. I can't answer those questions differently. I can't show up for moments that are gone. I can't become someone's first call in an emergency. I can't be woven into a shared history the way I once could have. Time doesn't negotiate. What's left now is memory, and a lot of quiet. I'm not telling you this because I want absolution. I've made peace with my life, such as it is. There's gratitude mixed in with the sorrow. I had food, shelter, purpose. I wasn't unloved. I just didn't know how to hold on to it properly. If you're listening to this and you're younger, I'm not here to give instructions. I don't know your life. I don't know your pressures. I only know what I wish I had understood earlier. Love doesn't wait for you to be ready. It doesn't care how busy you are. And it keeps score, even when you're not paying attention. The moments you think are small are the ones that decide things. Staying a little longer, listening a little better, saying what you feel before it becomes too late to say it. I used to think love was mostly about intention, about feeling something strong inside. Now I think it's mostly about showing up when you'd rather rest, about choosing presence over productivity, about letting yourself be needed. If this meant something to you, sit with it. You don't have to do anything dramatic. Just notice where you keep telling yourself, later. Later is fragile. As for me, I take my days as they come. Morning light through the window, slow walks, old songs on the radio. I'm not bitter, just honest. I learned what love really asks of you when my hands were already full of years I couldn't give back. That's the truth. And now that I've said it, I can sit quietly again.